Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, I'm here with the one and only Phil at the Arctic. We've seen the film. Well, you don't call Phil, won't you? Come on. Well, so we've seen the film. We saw you briefly. So I just want to go through, first of all, the first thing that it did was the action on the oil rig, which I really found pronounced. What was your role in that action?
Well, I was there to I think if there was a job title, it was podmaster. I was, when they put the pod up on the side of the rig, or when we were due to put the pod on the side of the rig, it's quite a technologically advanced bit of kit, and it's got Wi-Fi and it's got access so that we can talk to the Arctic sunrise, and then the film footage or the internet access can be, that we can beam stuff straight back to the media. So people could live tweet us, we could be tweeting out of there, we can be shooting video, we can have Skype conversations with people all over the world. And it's a technical nightmare to run it and to keep it going. It's run on batteries, it's got solar power, we had a wind jenny in there. And getting it up onto the side of the rig is also a bit of a palaver. It weighs nearly a ton, and you've got to winch it up there using the ribs, so you've got to haul it onto the side of the rig. Then you've got to climb up inside it, and obviously, as you saw from the film, it didn't really go to plan, to say the least. In fact, to say that you could say it went to complete shit at the very start. The first thing that went wrong was the tow line. To the pod. We were towing it with this really fast rib called Suzy Q, the most powerful rib in the Greenpeace fleet. And it hit a few waves and the tow line broke. But by then it was all going to pot round the rig, and we left the pod. All that work and all that effort and that 2 weeks of soldering and trying to get the thing going. We finally got it up to speed, and then it broke. So we left it behind. So that was my role. The pod is like extreme caravanning. It's kind of, you tow it to the place where you're going, and then you camp in it. It's like caravanning in a quite weird way. 30 metres underneath the heli deck of a massive oil rig. Sorry, I forgot what the question was.
I think you've answered it. That was pod 3, wasn't it? Pod 1 and 2 were crushed by the Norwegian authorities, were they, I think?
Pod 2 is in Denmark still, right. Apparently, in a police compound. I think pod 1 has been recycled. It wasn't really fit for purpose. It was like a giant tic-tac. Yeah. And it kind of is a bit...
Yeah. It spent a bit of time on the Isle of Rockall, didn't it, I think?
That's right, yeah. Right. This one we had this up to...
Towing this, we had it up to, I think it was 25 knots. It skimmed across the top of the water like a skimming stone. It was actually quite good.
Okay, so that was the main action, after which Sini and Crusoe were detained by the Russian Coast Guard, and the rest you were on the Arctic sunrise. And then came the helicopter. So perhaps you want to say what exactly happened when the FSB, the Russian commandos, raided the Arctic sunrise, Phil?
Yeah, it wasn't a massive surprise when they came, but we didn't realise it was going to come with a helicopter. It was at 6:30 p.m. I was just having my dinner, and Frank had already left to go and stand on the heli deck and watch the beautiful sunset. It was in the evening, and the moon was rising at the same time. And I looked out the porthole just to my left, and I saw the silhouette of the helicopter coming towards us, and I instantly knew it was a military helicopter. Recognised the shape of it, Russian military helicopter coming fast and low towards us, and kind of words along the lines of "oh shit" came to mind. And I had on me a little GoPro camera, one of these little helmet cams. It was in my pocket already. It had a video back on it, and in an instant. I'm a cameraman. It sort of came to its fruition at this point. It was the perfect moment, instantly. I'd done a load of things with Greenpeace. I didn't have to think. It wasn't my job. I wasn't there to be a cameraman, but I had the camera and I wasn't going to miss it. It was a golden opportunity. So I was out on the heli deck, and you saw the footage of the helicopter coming. That was all the stuff that I shot. filmed it, got underneath, filmed the guys coming down, a couple of guys coming down. I mean, there were more, there was about 15 in all. Quite quickly, I've got enough experience of being in those situations that you kind of know when the police or the security guards, or in that case soldiers, command a space. That's when they feel a little bit more confident, and then they look around and they see the camera and they nab it. They always go for the camera first. You know, I've been in a tug-of-war match with policemen near Nottingham where they were trying to steal my camera. And I didn't want that to happen because I knew that this stuff was gold dust. It's beautiful footage. You know, they even turned up at sunset, for God's sake, you know, to make it look beautiful. Instantly knew it was the most dramatic thing I'd ever shot, and didn't want them to get hold of it. So, you know, we have amazing kit on these Greenpeace ships, and we can beam this sort of footage back. We can uplink it. We've got satellite links and all kinds of stuff. And I had to get into the radio room where all that technology lies to beam it back to Greenpeace International for the news. You know, this is news. I knew this was news. The problem was we'd gone into lockdown, and Greenpeace is very good at locking down a ship. They're quite used to being boarded. All the doors were locked, all the windows were locked. Couldn't bloody get in, could I? So, I mean, you might have seen some of the footage. If you look at it on YouTube, you can see that I'm just trying the door. And I went round to the porthole of the radio room, banged on the window, and in there was Roman, who you saw in the film, and Colin, who's the radio operator, and Alex Harris, who was the one that sent those tweets, the last tweets. You know, she's there in the radio room as they're kicking the bloody door down, sending those tweets. It was amazing. But I banged on the window on a little porthole, and it was a bit of a sort of Wallace and Gromit moment. I'm just kind of going like, and she's trying to undo the porthole. It's got two screws, and the bottom one jammed. It just wouldn't fucking open. And it was like Hollywood, you know, like a Hollywood thing. I'm going like, for God's sake, Alex, like, open the fucking window. And she's like, so we tried a different window, and at the point when that one opened, I looked to my right, and there's one of these dudes coming, you know, balaclava, gun, combats, you know, hardcore, and he's coming like Terminator, you know, like Terminator, was it 2, 3, the one that goes really quick? Whoa! So again, Wallace and Gromit. And the window slammed back in my face, and I look back, and he's there, and he's going, camera, camera, camera. Right. So I turned away, and I said, I haven't got a camera, mate. And he's like, camera, camera. And he's like, oh, he's not convinced, you know, he actually doesn't believe me. He's obviously seen it. Or somebody said, get that dude, he's got a camera. I walked away from him, and he's pursuing me, saying the same thing over and over again. But, I mean, as I was going back to when I was at the window, as I turned, because I'd had a climb harness on earlier that day, and my jeans were quite baggy, I could just stick it straight down my pants. I didn't think about it, it just kind of happened, you know, just bosh, straight down there. And it wasn't very comfortable, to say the least. But I'm walking away with this thing in my pants. No, don't worry.
That footage be deleted.
Yeah, that footage never existed, it was never shot in the first place. It was just smuggling, it wasn't porn. So I walked away, but then, you know, within seconds, I'm surrounded by 3 of them. You know, again, guns, and they frisked me at gunpoint, and you know, I started to think, as they're sort of patting me down, I'm thinking, you know, they're going to find the bloody thing, you know, and I can't let this happen. So I kind of created a bit of a scene. I kind of threw a little bit of a hissy fit and just demonstrated to them, look, you know, it's not in my shoes, it's not in my hood. I haven't got a camera, and I walked away. You know, it was all I had, it was all I could do. I thought I'd give it a shot. And for some reason that was kind of good enough for them. They were sort of either convinced or just bored, or maybe they misinterpreted it as some sort of gay hissy fit, and they're all a bit homophobic and they didn't want to mess. So they certainly didn't want to touch me balls and find the camera. So I got away with it for that point. Later, they took us to heli deck. We stayed on the heli deck. Then we were taken back to the mess and sort of held in there, and that's where I took the memory card, you know, in a quiet moment when the guy wasn't looking, took the memory card out, and we had this idea, me and Housey, the engineer, to hide it in my shoe, and I took the insole out of my shoe, got a knife and cut a little slot in it, and, you know, horizontally, so inside the foam of my shoe was where this tiny little memory card, like, you know, it's crazy, the technology, like 32 gigabytes, and it's smaller than your fingernail, and there it is, with all this footage in it, in my bloody shoe. So of course then, you know, later they searched us, and of course, you know, didn't find that. And it was safe, and I thought, you know, for a couple of days, by the time we get out of prison, it will, you know, once this story has all died down and nobody's really interested in it anymore, in like 2 or 3 days, you know, then we'll come out and it will be on the news again. And of course, you know what happened, we ended up in jail. And even being strip searched going into jail, you know, they took my shoe off, and I'm just really worried about this thing. You know, as a filmmaker, you know, when I was a camera assistant, you protect the rushes. That's the important thing. You know, the film rushes are everybody's work. A whole crew of 100 people are in this film can, or in this case, a tiny little bloody thing. It's really important. So I was protecting it, and I kind of, yeah, I basically searched my own shoes for them. I pulled the insole out and I look, insole, here's a shoe, that's empty too, right? And of course they're looking for drugs or knives or something, so they're not looking for minute memory cards. So I managed to smuggle it into a Russian prison, but then it kind of struck me that I just smuggled it into a Russian prison. And the only existing copy of this footage is now in the bloody jail. So then I had to try and design a way to try and get the bloody thing out. And I wrote lots of letters to people on the ground team, and you know, I mean, it's sort of told in the book, but I just wasn't getting any messages back that were reassuring enough for me to be able to say, you know, I can trust this guy or this guy or this guy to smuggle it out for me. In the end, I knew that the ITLOS trial, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea trial, was coming up, the hearing that, you know, the Russians didn't show up to. And that was important, and it turned out to be really important for our case. And it was important that they saw what actually happened. So it wasn't just the fact that I knew this was a big news story, and I could kind of picture, you know, dramatic new footage has come to light of the moment that Greenpeace ship, the Arctic Sunrise, was boarded by Russian security. You know, I could hear that in my head, like the BBC announcer saying it. It wasn't just the news, it was a really important legal thing. And it had to get out there, so I had to make a punt. And I still can't tell you how it went out, because if the people who helped with that smuggling operation were to, you know, word was to get around what they'd done and how they did it, they would be inside. You know, it's still a hot topic out there. So I can't tell you how it went out or who did it or exactly where. The story that's told in the book is kind of a little bit of a twisted version because, again, to protect the innocent. But I can tell you that it went out in a matchbox, right? It's one of these Russian matchboxes. You know, as a non-smoker, I didn't really need the cigarettes and the matches they sent, so I gave them to my cellmate. But something like that, and I cut the bottom out. Look, here's one I prepared earlier. Cut the bottom out like that. And then that goes into, it's hard to do with the microphone, I'll tip those, alright, I've got it. Tip those out there, and then that went in like that, and the memory card went underneath it. So if you tip the matches out, it just looks like a matchbox. But it had the memory card in. I was quite worried that they would get it and go, it's empty, throw it away. But yeah, the next day, I went to the exercise yard and I heard Frank's voice over the wall, and he said, "Phil, was that your footage on the news last night?" It was just like, you know, for more than 4 weeks I had this bloody thing in my shoe, and you know, the relief, the sense of relief, and actually, you know, pride. As a cameraman, I want my footage to be seen, but I also knew that it was really helping everybody in there, and I'd actually managed, you know, as a real boost to my ego, not just ego, boost to my morale in there. You know, I'd actually really managed to pull one over on those bastards and, you know, get that footage out of there. So that was the...
Okay, well, thanks, Phil. I guess we can probably guess what it's like in a Russian detention facility. Boring, uncomfortable, frightening, lousy food. But what probably surprised me when I read the book was there is the prison email system, the Doroga. Do you want to perhaps just say a little bit about that?
Well, Doroga in Russian means road, and I've no idea why it's called that. But each prison system has a method of communication You know, it's important for all humans to communicate, and in a prison it's probably more so. In CISO 1 in Murmansk, it works like a load of strings. You know, if you imagine that we're in a cell, it's not as big as this room, you know, there's a window there with bars on it, the dividing wall, and then the next cell is over there with a window facing out into the courtyard. And you somehow get a string out of that window, along the front of the building, and into that window. And it's long enough to have a bit of slack, and in the middle of it is tied a sock. And if I pull this string tight, the sock pops in the window. I can write a message to, so the first one I wrote when the guy, when I got inside the prison, my cellmate explained to me how it works. And I wrote a message to Kieran, it's kind of, dear Kieran, it turns out there's email here. Click reply if you get this. Lots of love, Phil. You roll it up like a cigarette, you flatten it, you crimp the ends, and you write on it the cell number of the guy you're sending it to and who you've sent it from, and your cell number. Then you stick it in the sock and you bang on the wall, whichever way it's going, and you hear a bang bang comes back, and they pull the string and the sock flies out of the window, along the building and back in. They pull it out, they look at the number and they think, oh, not for this cell. Stick it in the next sock because there's another one. Going up, going down, left, right, and the whole side of the building is linked by this internet of strings. And within 5 minutes, Kieran had replied to me, with some bullshit that didn't really matter. But he counted one of his cellmate was one of the hubs where he's got 4 strings and he's a major point. And these guys write down every single message that comes into and out of the cell. And it was something like 1,000 in one evening. And this is how justice is dispensed by the prison bosses, and make no mistake, the prison bosses are the prisoners. The mafia operates strongly inside the prison. Justice is meted out by these guys. If you cross them or you do the wrong thing, something strange might happen to you when nobody's looking. But also, it's not as sinister as that most of the time, because there's a massive solidarity in there, and everybody looks after each other. If you turn up, if you're just nicked on the streets of Murmansk with the clothes that you're wearing, you could be in there for 2 years, and you might not have anybody to help you. But those guys in there will help you, and it's a prison brotherhood. Everybody looks after everybody else. And, it's not just the messages, sugar, the water boiler for boiling your water, spare blankets, spare food, all kinds of stuff comes in. And people had prison girlfriends apparently, like they'd never met, but they sent sort of explicit messages to the other wing where the women were. So, yeah, it's a bizarre world in there.
Can I ask something about that?
Yeah, indeed.
So how come the socks are on the outside wall between the windows? So how come the prison guards or nobody has sussed this out? Or does the mafia within the prison overcome the prison? How does that work?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So this is rigged in the 8 hours overnight. As soon as they change the lighting system and switch over to the nighttime staff, they start yelling out the window. They start poking their fishing rod that they've made out of rolled up newspapers and swinging the string. The other guy catches it, pulls it in. It has to be rigged and de-rigged every night. And the reason why it's tolerated, about 2 years before we were there, it had been shut down completely. Probably because it was totally out of control. People had drilled holes in the walls and were passing messages through. And there was the rumour that somebody had made a hole in the floor and was actually popping downstairs to visit his girlfriend. Don't know whether that was true. But they did shut it down. And at the given moment, again, it's even without the road, word got around as to when the riot should happen. And it kicked off, like people broke their cells, people smashed windows, and it majorly kicked off because of this. So it was kind of allowed to be tolerated again. If you imagine being a prison guard You know, you live in Murmansk, which is not a big town, and it's on the outside. The mafia is big. You know, I mean, it's Russia. You know, I mean, the mafia. You know, Putin is mafia. You know, the KGB is integral with the mafia. It works like that. If you walk to or drive to work or walk away from work at the end of the day, they know where you live. You know, and if you're one of the guys who's shut down the road, they will know that you were one of the guys who shut down the road, and you might not get to work the next day. So the guards are, you know, it's in their interest to tolerate it within certain levels. So there's a sort of an equilibrium, and it's, you know, that's the way it works.
And I didn't understand about which language this all goes on in.
It all goes on in Russian. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
So how did you communicate in Russian?
It's amazing. If you've got enough time, you can communicate with anybody. Like draw pictures. You know, I mean, the first time I arrived in the cell, he showed me a list. He said, "What is your name?" You know, me, Washa. You. So I said, "I'm Phil." It was Phil, and he writes Phil in Russian. Okay, and then he says, you know, and he eventually asked me, you know, what is my article number? Didn't know what that meant, but it's what I was charged of, piracy 223. Where are you from? UK. Okay, UK. And then your cell number. And then he shows me a list of names that he's already got, and I'd only been there for 5 minutes. Like, well, how the hell do you know Paul Rizicki, who's age 45 from Canada? Right? Well, and he sort of explained in sign language and a bit of pointing that, you know, how it worked, which is why the first message was a bit like, well, I think this might work. And sure enough, it did.
So that was detention in Murmansk, and say the footage you smuggled out was vital because it arrived literally a few hours after the International Court of the Sea had just adjourned the initial hearings. And really until then, like all of us in Manchester, we'd heard the press reports, we'd seen the action on the rig, but we hadn't actually seen the actual FSB raid on the Arctic Sunrise. So really it's hard to imagine now what it was like at the time, isn't it, Vanessa? We hadn't seen those pictures, we didn't know what was going on. Okay, so things progressed. You were charged with piracy, you were in Murmansk, then you were moved to St. Petersburg and the charge became hooliganism. And that second hearing is when the T-shirt made its debut. So what was, you were detained in the Kresty, an infamous prison. Several thousand political prisoners in Soviet times met a grisly end in the basement. How were things in St. Petersburg different to Murmansk?
I mean, compared with CISO 1 in Murmansk, Kresty was a breeze. It was like luxury. I mean, CISO 1 was shit. It was bad. It was horrible. It was, you know, there were. I mean, Dima had fleas in the floor that were biting up to the level of the knees. Roman and Cini both had rats that visited them. Roman's family were quite perturbed when he, you know, concerned when he moved cells, and they were no longer getting any updates of how Mrs. Rat was doing. The food was awful, but you know, when they moved us to St. Petersburg, you know, I was sort of trusting my intuition, but not relying on it. You don't dare trust your suspicions too much, and things were starting to feel like they might be on the up, like the escape plan might be set, that Putin might have worked out how to get out of this messy situation and finally let us go. You know, they changed the investigators and they put us on the train and they moved us to St. Petersburg with a bit of a delay, which turns out to be the most likely reason was that they had to decorate the cells. You know, because somebody probably went into the cell and just went, "Oh, I can't move them in here. It's terrible." So they delayed it. You know, we were about to go and then we didn't. And you know, the fresh paint smell was in the room when we went in, and we had a new cellmate, and there was a fridge, and there was a flat screen TV, and there was CCTV watching us. You know, rather than the old system. It was quite bizarre. Kresty was, you know, very infamous. I mean, my cellmate in Murmansk told me about, whoa, we're going to St. Petersburg. He drew a picture of the cross shape of Kresty and he said, Kresty, very bad. Turns out Christie, very good. The food was great, you know, but it's still a Russian prison, you know, comparatively very good, and very good for us. And it's a little tiny room, the size of a sort of a, I don't know, imagine a gents' loo where there's 2 urinals. It's that sort of sized room that you're in, and we had 2 guys. It was me and one other guy. On one evening, on my last weekend, because it was quite relaxed and we were kind of star prisoners, you know, they let us take a long shower, and my mate, you know, my cellmate wandered out, you know, they just basically left the door open, free run of the jail on the outside, you know, and he wandered over to his old cell and tapped on the thing and opened the hatch and had a chat with his mate and the next door one. And after I'd finished my shower, I came out and had a chat as well. And he'd look in there and it was just like, it looked as bad as the Murmansk one, you know, but at least it wasn't so damp and so horrible. But there was 8 guys in that little room, you know, all crammed in, and that's the conditions that the Russians got. You know, they were treating us well, so that we would kind of forget about Murmansk a bit, you know. But it was, you know, still not great.
Okay. So the way it ended wasn't quite as straightforward as they had to portray it in the film. The Greenpeace, or your lawyers, put in an application for bail after you'd been in Murmansk and assuming St. Petersburg and charged with hooliganism. First person into the dock was Colin, and his bail condition was refused. Now, where were you at that time, and how much did you know what was going on?
Yeah, the communication was a bit ropey in Kresty because, you know, we didn't have the road. I mean, there was a road there, but we weren't on it because, you know, we had the CCTV and we couldn't communicate. So the messages we were getting were few and far between. When we went for an exercise, you know, of the 24 hours of the day, 23 were spent in our cell, and we got an hour exercise, which is in like a pen, you know, like a pig pen with high walls. But you can shout over the wall, and if you've got a neighbour, you know, if the guy over the other side of the bricks is one of your guys, you can exchange information and get news. And bit by bit, and we also had a TV, so we could see on the news, although I couldn't understand a bloody word of what they were saying, we got the picture that this bail thing was starting to happen. And Colin's bail hearing was an anomaly because it was the first one, and they ballsed it up. So he got, you know, detained for another 3 months to begin with, which was, you know, a shocker for Greenpeace and really bad news. But almost immediately, word came through from the Kremlin to let the judge know that their independent decision should be that we grant bail. So the next one got bail, and nobody could work out, you know, what the hell did Colin do? It was so bad. It was just basically he didn't submit any evidence, and he got his case over before the facts came through. That was what Colin did, which was quite bad on him. But we were all a little bit paranoid. We didn't know whether they were going to release the Russians and keep everybody else in, or whether they were starting to release some of us and keep the ringleaders, you know, so whether it be Frank, the action coordinator, the captain, and Dima, the chief campaigner, or whether they had something else, you know, was it all the activists who tried to climb the rig, or was it only the ones that had climbed the rig? And I didn't actually know, and you don't dare let your guard down and just think, yeah, I'm out, because, you know, it will just come back to bite you, and it's really harsh when you start to feel like a bit depressed in there. You can imagine it's quite bad. I didn't dare actually believe that I was going to get out on bail until the moment when somebody said that Cinny, you know, who was one of the climbers who actually made it onto the rig, they said Cinny got bail, and just those words, instantly. I mean, initially, I was like, oh, thank God, Cinny, you know, she's a vegan. You know, she's not actually getting enough nutrition. If she stays in here, there's going to be nothing of her. She's not very big to start with. It's really not good for her. I was obviously, you know, over the moon that she was going to get bail, and then it just instantly hit me that means I'm going to get bail. And if she gets bail, I'm going to get bail. And that was the point where I actually climbed the wall of the exercise yard. You know, I was just so elated. I became this amazing rock climber that I'd never been before. Climbed up the bricks and just for the fun of it. So yeah, that was a good day.
So your release came in sort of two parts. First of all, the release from prison onto bail in St Petersburg, and then finally the return to England. At what point did you realise it really was all over?
Is it all over? God, I don't know whether there was one particular moment. I mean, it was the way that it unfolded was like this sort of. I don't know. It says a lot about the bungled way the whole state works. You know that. I mean, they can when they actually finally gave us bail. They gave us bail. Okay, we were out, but they couldn't. The guards didn't know how to fill in the forms. They'd never seen bail forms before. You know, they don't do bail over there. You get charged and you spend 2 years on remand. You know, remanded in custody, as it would be over here, and then you might get nicked or you might get kicked out. The guards didn't know what the forms were. They didn't know how to fill them in. They were making phone calls and people were coming down and saying, "Well, I haven't seen it either. You know, I don't know what this fucking thing is." You know. We come out, they bungled my release as well. I mean, for goodness sake, you know, all they had to do was get the bail money, which was already bought and paid for. They processed 28 by then. I was the second to last one to come out, but they couldn't even do that in time. So the guard told me, "You're getting out of jail, you know, you're going out on bail and pack your bags, you've got 15 minutes.
How much was the bail money?
Oh, bloody was, yeah. I don't know the exact figure.
Millions of rubles, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know what the right translation
And who paid it?
Greenpeace.
Greenpeace fronted the money, yeah. But he said 15 minutes. So I said goodbye to my cellmate, Max, you know, who I was kind of quite good mates with by then. And then they arrived to take me away and they looked at their list and went, "Oh, we only have 2 names. One of them is not yours, and the other one is also not yours." You know, they even told it, that's word for word, they even told it me in a comedy way, which was just like, you know, whack, whack, oops. For nearly 2 months, I'd not let my guard down, not let those false horizons in, and the moment I let one in, it came back to bite me. So I spent the whole weekend in there, you know, just feeling like shit. It was probably the second to worst time in prison was the very last weekend, which is why I wasn't smiling much when I came out. We then spent nearly a month on bail in St Petersburg in a couple of fairly flash hotels, and it wasn't that bad. It was, you know, at least we had our mates to talk ourselves through it. But then we got the amnesty. You know, they very generously said you can have an amnesty. Okay, we're going to give everybody an amnesty. And our lawyer said, yeah, but it doesn't apply to them because they haven't been charged. They've been charged, they haven't been convicted. So it doesn't apply to them under your legislation. And they went, oh, shit. So they went back and they had a look at it and they put it to the Duma, the whole parliament. And strangely, unanimously, they voted that it would apply to us. Oh, what a surprise. You know, maybe Mr. P had a word. They're basically just, you know, those guys are puppets. They just do what the president says. So yeah, it applied to us. And when we heard that they voted unanimously that we had an amnesty, it was a bittersweet pill because that was when we realised that we were going home. You know, that's it. It's over. This is we thought the last hurdle to get out. But it was also like, you know, fuck you. Why should I accept your fucking amnesty? You know, I never did the crime. I want to go to a trial and I want to be proven guilty. That's how I want to go home. I don't want your, you know, generous gesture to let me go with a, you know, like, you know, give me a little prezi to take home for the kids. You know, like, fuck you. I didn't even do this. I'm not a pirate. I'm not a hooligan. And what I did was stand up for the planet and do it in international waters, which doesn't apply in your jurisdiction. So, you know, fuck you, Putin. But I wasn't about to say that. That's what I felt. I mean, Dennis was considering actually saying, no, I don't want the amnesty. And he now realises that he made the right decision in accepting it. But yeah, we obviously accepted the amnesty. They then tried to stamp our passports with an exit visa and realised that we didn't have an entry visa because the FSB hadn't done the right paperwork. I mean, they did so much paperwork, it was unbelievable, but the 30 passports they had, they couldn't put 30 stamps into. So we had to basically have a letter from our mum, or the equivalent of, from the investigator to say that it is completely okay for this person to have an exit visa and not an entry visa, and they're not an illegal immigrant, so please let them out. Thank you, bye. And that was the final hurdle. But I didn't dare let in any of that until the tyres left the tarmac at the airport in St. Petersburg, and at that moment, you know, I was holding it back and holding it back and holding it back, and then we just got there and I was standing up in my seat, cheering with my fists in the air. You know, it was just, like Ben said in that early film, endorphins fizzing through your veins. It was just, you cannot believe after that much torment, you know, what the relief was like to actually realise that you're leaving this shitty country and actually going home. Yeah, it was a big moment.
You didn't cry?
Not at that moment, no.